Thank you all for joining us here at I-80 Sports, where today the month of October is already done. So let's recap what happened. We're going to be talking standings, stats, and news from throughout October. Guys, thank you all for joining us here again at I-80 Sports. Thank you all for joining us here again at I-80 Sports. Make sure you subscribe down below, youtube.com/NHL on I-80 Sports. You can check out all of our content there, our previews from this past season, as well as some old content there as well. Subscribe, hit the bell notification so that way you know when our content goes live. You can also listen to us on wherever you best stream your podcasting, whether it's Spotify, Apple Music. Go and stream it there or watch it on YouTube. Comment down below with your thoughts from the month of October as well for your favorite team. And above all else, away we go. I'm Brian. He's Tom. Tom, how are you doing today?
Doing well. And the month of October is up. We're in November. Doesn't really feel like it. I have my windows open at home. It's 70 degrees out right now. I can't even believe it.
Some unseasonable warmth for sure, but it's plenty cold on the ice. And we've had quite a bit go on in the NHL so far. So we're here to recap that today. We're going to be talking standings. We're going to be talking stats, as well as some news going into the month of October that we're already currently in that you guys should be aware of. So without further ado, let's take a look right now at the current standings in the NHL. Today's date is Tuesday, November 5th, 2024. Happy Election Day, everybody. Those in America, that is. And for everybody else, well, I hope you're curled up on the couch, not cowering in fear at the moment. But away we go with this. We're going to talk standings first. So let's take a look at what things are looking like right now without further ado. So these standings are coming courtesy of NHL.com. We're looking at the Eastern Conference first, starting in the Atlantic Division. As we can see right now, in first place, we got the Florida Panthers with 19 points overall. They've been off to a very hot start to start the season. Next, in a two-way tie for second place right now, even though Tampa Bay has a tiebreaker. Tampa Bay's in second and Toronto is in third. You've got Boston in fourth place. Then Ottawa in fifth, Detroit in sixth, Buffalo in seventh, and pulling up the rear is the Montreal Canadiens in eighth place. Even though both Buffalo and Montreal have the current same standings, this is all separated by goal differential when the standings are this close, which the Atlantic Division is actually pretty close when you really think about it. Going on down to the Metropolitan Division. Currently right now in the Metropolitan Division, the New Jersey Devils are in first place. They weren't last night. That was the New York Rangers last night. But as of today, it is the New Jersey Devils with 18 points. Right behind them is the New York Rangers with 17 points. Then in a tie for third place right now is the Carolina Hurricanes and Washington Capitals. Then going down to the latter half of the standings in the Metropolitan Division, we've got the Columbus Blue Jackets and Pittsburgh Penguins with 11 points, the New York Islanders with 10 points, and the Philadelphia Flyers with 9 points right now. Going on to the Western Conference right now, we have the hands down the best team in the NHL currently. It's the Winnipeg Jets. 11-1 to start the year in 12 games played. They have 22 points to start the year. In second place, also kind of surprisingly, is the Minnesota Wild with 8 wins to start their first 11 games, 18 points. Next is the Dallas Stars with 14 points, the Utah Hockey Club in fourth place with 13 points, St. Louis Blues with 12 points in fifth place. In sixth place, the Chicago Blackhawks with 11 points. And then surprisingly, in seventh place, the Colorado Avalanche with 10 points. And pretty surprisingly as well, the Nashville Predators pulling up the rear in eighth place with 9 points. Finally, we're looking at the Pacific Division here. Vegas Golden Knights and Los Angeles Kings are currently tied for first place with 17 points. However, you could definitely say that the Vegas Golden Knights right now are in first place, especially with that goal differential. In third place right now is the Vancouver Canucks with 13 points, as well as the Calgary Flames and Edmonton Oilers with 13 points as well. Again, that separation is that goal differential and number of games played as well. In sixth place is the Seattle Kraken with 11 points. In seventh place, the Anaheim Ducks with 10 points. And in eighth place, the San Jose Sharks with 8 points right now. So, got to change our view here. There we go. So, to start off with here, there's a little bit to digest here with the month of October. I wouldn't say it's time to hit the panic button at all for certain teams whatsoever, but it should just kind of be of note right now who's dominating the league right now, who's off to a hot start, and who's bottom dwelling right now. And, what kind of surprises do we see with that? But let's just first start who's dominating, who's bottom dwelling. Tom, let's start here with you. Who are the dominant forces in the league in the Eastern Conference, Western Conference, and who's pulling up the rear right now?
I mean, our usual suspects here: Florida, the Rangers, Tampa, Carolina, who's playing a lot better than I thought. Vegas, always Ice is a good team. I thought they may take a step back this year. They're sitting pretty right there in first right now. Vancouver's doing well. I think they could be doing a little bit better, but they're where I thought they would be. Dallas, same thing, 7-4. In third place, not having a bad run of it all with over in Dallas, and same thing. Tampa Bay close to the top. Toronto playing respectably. So, those are the usual suspects up top. Down near the bottom, San Jose not doing too well. Philadelphia not doing well either, which I'm a little bit surprised about because I thought they might take a step forward after the year they had last year with Mitchkov, but not really. And Buffalo as well at the bottom. These four teams, not surprised at all. Montreal, you could throw in there as well, not really playing all that well and close to the bottom of the standings, Basically, that's right now those teams, it's what's to be expected. So it's no real surprise to me there with that group that everybody's where they are.
Yeah. We have some usual suspects near the top right now. I mean, Tom already said a few, but I'll mention a few others here. The Florida Panthers are a clear favorite right now in the Atlantic Division. New York Rangers are definitely up there as well. The Carolina Hurricane are also doing well as well. New Jersey is off to a very good start as well. Definitely some bumps in the road here and there. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Probably the surprising one here for me is the Washington Capitals. Really off to a strong start to start this year. Hopefully they don't run out of gas as we start getting into the dog days of this NHL season. But in the West, I mean, what a start from Winnipeg and Minnesota right now in the West. I mean, Winnipeg, I don't think any of us had pegged the hot start that Winnipeg was going to get off to start this year, nor did we possibly anticipate them being the best team overall in the NHL right now, leading the entire league with 22 points to start the year. They've only lost one game, no overtime losses as well. They've been dynamite. Other teams that are doing really well in my mind, the Vegas Golden Knights are doing great, especially looking at the goal differential. Anybody that kind of knows me at this point knows that I like to talk goal differential. That is to me the mark of a decent team. And that's why Vegas, despite not having the highest point total right now in the Western Conference, they're still not a team to overlook at the moment. That plus 17 goal differential is going to go a long way for them going forward. The LA Kings are also doing great, and the Dallas Stars are looking great as well. Bottom dwellers as of right now, well, it's some of the usual suspects: Montreal Canadiens, the San Jose Sharks, the Buffalo Sabres. These are teams that we anticipated would get off to sluggish starts. A surprising one to me has been the Philadelphia Flyers to start the year. I do think in my heart of hearts that they do turn that around. But we also have some surprises at the moment with Colorado and Nashville, which we're going to get into in a little bit here, which, speaking of which, let's segue into surprises here, Tom. Who is surprising to you right now for better or for worse to start the year?
Well, I should say Winnipeg and the start they got off to, yes. But I expected them to be a playoff team. Maybe not a first place team, but definitely a wild card team. People soon forget that they were at the top of the league in the middle of the season last year playing unbelievable hockey, playing very stingy defensive hockey with Connor Hellebuck, but they were really, really on top in chase for the President's Trophy. That loss to Colorado in the first round dropped their stock a little bit, if you ask me. Minnesota, though, did not expect this. Figured they were a shoo-in for last place, figured they'd be open for business at the deadline. The real question is how long can they keep it up in a strong division that has Colorado and Nashville right now punching well below their weight? Washington too. I just figured it'd be, let's just ride out the glory years of Ovechkin, ride out into the sunset, watch him play his last games while we slowly rebuild this thing. But they're playing well in a Metro division that I thought would be fairly weak, and it's turning out to be a little bit tighter than I thought. And it seemed like he's tighter now because of their play. For worse, keyword was keyword Nashville. I thought they'd stumble out of the gate, but 0-5 is a terrible, terrible, terrible start for Nashville. Alas, they are turning it around. It is still only October, so, it's not like the season is over in Nashville, at least not yet. But the real question is this. Barry Trotz ordered Fire Wagon Hockey, wanted more of an offensive team, wanted more of a threat of a team. Is that order of them wanting to play more Fire Wagon Hockey really hurting this team? And the real question is, if this doesn't solve itself in the next couple of weeks by, say, Thanksgiving, could Brunette be on the hot seat and could Trotz be back behind the bench coaching again? Because he coached a stacked team like this in Washington that won a Stanley Cup in 2018. And the biggest problem with Washington those years before he got there was they played too much run and gun. They played too much Fire Wagon Hockey. And it wasn't until he got there that they figured out how to play in all three zones and win a championship. And could the leash on Andrew Brunette be getting very, very tight in Nashville if they can't figure this thing out? Now, another one I'm a little surprised by, Boston Bruins. The Bruins, I thought, were a shoe in the Atlantic Division. Now, while the Bruins are a wild card team right now, the second wild card team, they're only playing .500 hockey. Their goal differential that you like to talk about so much is -8 after giving Jeremy Swayman a pretty nice deal to hang around there. They have a -8 goal differential. So I'm very surprised by the Bruins. And every year I say, well, could this be it for the Bruins? Could this be it for the Bruins? And this is the first year where I said, this isn't it for the Bruins. They'll be fine. They're a playoff team. They'll have no problems. Now they're teetering in a wild card spot. They're teetering in a wild card spot with other teams behind them, like Ottawa, who's playing well, and Detroit, who has a pretty star-studded cast who can play better, and then Columbus Blue Jackets, who've had a respectable start. So the Boston Bruins are one that are below their weight. Now, another team that wears black and gold, the Pittsburgh Penguins. To start, Sidney Crosby wasn't great. Now he's back at a point-per-game pace. But I said about these Penguins, too, I look up and down the roster, and yet again I say, the personnel they have there right now is too good to be playing this bad. And now they're doing something that I've always said you shouldn't do. Now they have Malkin playing the left wing on Crosby's line. And that screws up their second, third, and fourth lines. And I don't know if that's going to help them throughout the year. And like I said, this may be an unheard of third consecutive year in Pittsburgh with no playoffs unless they start figuring it out.
Yeah. A lot to digest here for me. I'm pleasantly surprised by a few teams. The three teams that I really want to highlight here that I'm pleasantly surprised by are Winnipeg, Minnesota, and Washington to really kind of start off with. I'm going to start on Minnesota here just because this is kind of where my screen is at the moment. I wanted to bring up from Hockey Reference a big reason why Minnesota is off to such a great start. And that's Kirill Kaprizov to start off with. 7 goals, 14 assists, 21 points to start this year. He has been a huge contributor, also averaging 23 minutes a night so far. And he has been dynamite. And you have role players on this team that have also picked it up as well. Matt Boldy with 13 points to start the year. Matt Zuccarello, 11 points to start the year. At 37 years old, he's a point per game right now. And that's just impressive. And then looking on the other end of the spectrum, you also have the youngsters that are contributing. I mentioned Matthew Boldy before. Marco Rossi with 10 points in 11 games, 3 goals, 7 assists in that time as well. The biggest thing here is this is a total team effort so far. I mean, we finally get down to, 9 players. Like, we have 9 players right now with more than 5 points on this team. So they're getting contribution from all lines right now. Everything is really firing all cylinders right now for the Minnesota Wild. The other big contributing factor right now has been in net. Consistency between the pipes has been huge for them too. Philip Gustafson's really been pulling the weight here in net so far. And it really shows with that goals against average and save percentage. He's sporting a 2.12 goals against and a 924 save percentage. That 2.12 goals against, by the way, currently leads the NHL. So he is playing fantastically to start this year. And Marc-Andre Fleury, in the only 3 games that he's played thus far, has also done decently as a backup. 2.93 goals against average, a little bit of a lower 899 save percentage, but in limited play, that's still really good. 80 saves on 89 shots. Really not awful for a guy who's 40 years old either. Next team I want to highlight here is the Winnipeg Jets. I have no idea why I scrolled all the way to the top. I probably didn't even need to. But another reason why Winnipeg has been doing so well to start this year is, I mentioned before, the amount of players that you have that are contributing. It's even more so on the on the Winnipeg Jets. So 11 players with 9 or more points to start the year. And you have 5 players that are currently at over a point per game. Leading the charge right now has been Kyle Connor with 19 points in 12 games. Then Nikolai Ehlers with 17 points in 12 games. Mark Scheifele with 16 points in 12 games. Josh Morrissey with 15 points in 12 games. 13 assists to boot as well. Neil Pionk, 13 points in 12 games. Great stuff. And then right behind them is Cole Perfetti with 11 points in 12 games. He's nearly a point per game. Also nearly a point per game, as well as Gabriel Velarde with 10 points and Nino Niederreiter with 10 points. The Winnipeg Jets have a complete roster right now that is doing all the right things. Really strong play defensively, really strong play offensively right now. And then between the pipes right now, you have just pure consistency at the moment. Connor Hellebuck has been an absolute brick wall to start the year. 2.33 goals against average, a 917 save percentage, and 8 wins to start the year, which also leads the NHL as well. And then beyond that, you also have steady play backing him up right now in Eric Comrie behind him. Funny how things kind of circled back for him, because he originally started as a Winnipeg Jet, actually started as the heir apparent in Winnipeg before Connor Hellebuck really kind of burst onto the scene and kind of usurped him. Then Eric Comrie kind of bounced around the league for a little while there, especially during the COVID years, and then found his way back to Winnipeg, and lo and behold, he has been a very good backup to start this year. 3 wins in 3 games. 2.67 goals against and a 914 save percentage, 85 saves on 93 shots. He has been very good as well. Winnipeg has had a total complete effort to start this year. They've been the best team in the NHL. Finally, I wanted to mention here the Washington Capitals and reasons why they are doing well to start this year and why maybe it shouldn't be as surprising. Dylan Strome is an underrated player right now in the NHL. 17 points in 11 games thus far. Alexander Ovechkin, off to the strong start that he ended last year with. He was off to such a, meandering start last year that we were kind of wondering, maybe it's a time for Alex Ovechkin to maybe consider hanging him up. But he's off to another strong start yet again. 7 goals, 7 assists, 14 points on the year in 11 games. And then you also have Connor McMichael with 12 points in 11 games and Alexei Protas with 11 points in 11 games thus far as well. Steady effort here by Washington and just doing a lot of the little things very well. They're finishing checks. Their forecheck has been very good, and they're honestly taking advantage of teams that are slow to start off this year. Also serviceable, I would say, maybe not great goaltending, which is why I'm also kind of concerned here for the Washington Capitals and why I think things could eventually turn back to normal for the Washington Capitals. Like normal in the sense that I don't know if I see them as a top 4 team in the NHL throughout the year. And the reason being is between the pipes right now. Charlie Lindgren and Logan Thompson, although have not been awful between the pipes, that goals against average and save percentage is something that I would be kind of monitoring going into November. A 2.70 goals against average and an 896 save percentage for Charlie Lindgren, and for Logan Thompson, a 2.97 goals against average and an 894 save percentage. Notice I didn't say one is the starter over the other because they're playing a straight, back and forth tandem right now between the both of them.
Proof was in the pudding last week. They dominated the Rangers last Tuesday, and the Rangers still put 3 pucks in their net.
Yeah. Part of what has been helping the Washington Capitals right now has been their goal differential at the moment. That's been the one thing that's kind of been helping. They currently sport, surprisingly, a plus 13 goal differential. And it has a lot more to do with the amount of goals that they're scoring and not necessarily on the goals against. They have 46 goals for, which, if we currently rank it in the Metropolitan Division, they rank second behind the New Jersey Devils in goals for right now. However, in the goals against department, 33 goals against, teams in the upper echelon right now, minus the New Jersey Devils, the New York Rangers and Carolina Hurricane, currently have under 30 goals scored to start this year. Scored against, that is. So Washington's going to need to kind of monitor that goaltending situation kind of going forward to start this year. Lastly, because I don't want to ramble on too long on surprising things to me, it's a mess right now in Nashville and Colorado so far. Colorado needs stable goaltending in the worst way right now. Alexander Georgiev has not necessarily been the answer. And Justice Noonan is still trying to really kind of get his feet set in Colorado as well. I think these are really more so just growing pains. I think they're working through some injuries. They're working through just trying to get that roster just stable. Could we possibly see a coaching change?
I mean, I don't know. You can't blame the coach when you look past the first line and there's not much else there.
Yeah. I did want to just pull up Hockey Reference one more time, just on my end. I'm not going to present it or anything like that. I more so just want to pull it up for my reference because I don't want to pull stats out of my rear end, as they say. It hasn't been for lack of trying. The usual suspects are doing well. Mikko Rantanen, Nathan McKinnon, Cale Makar, all players over a point per game right now. Same with Casey Middlestat. I think the injury to Ross Colton is definitely something that's kind of hurt them as well. He had 8 goals in 10 games before getting hurt for him. So I think that is something worth mentioning. But beyond Ross Colton, everybody else with less than 5 points to start this year is not the start that I think a lot of people were anticipating. But the biggest problem right now has been the goaltending. I mean, in 6 games played for Alexander Georgiev, he currently is in the bottom of current NHL goaltenders, if not the bottom right now. A 4.62 goals against average and 822 save percentage. I think we're really going to start seeing Justice Noonan take over as the starting goaltender kind of moving forward. I think he currently has 5 starts, and he's been playing better in net overall. A 2.58 goals against, an 899 save percentage. Not great, but a heck of a lot better than Alexander Georgiev. And also to pick up in relief, they also picked up Kaapo Kakkonen to try to maybe save something, but he also didn't do great in his first game between the pipes for the Colorado Avalanche. 16 saves on 20 shots. So, yeah, just Colorado needs to pick it up here. The other team that's been surprising to me and probably to everybody else has been Nashville. I think this more so for Nashville has to do with building chemistry because they had a lot of additions to this team, and I think they're honestly just trying to find footing. But what is a big concern is this is an underperforming lineup at the moment. 10 points for Philip Forsberg in 12 games. He is your leading scorer right now, and this was a team that a lot of people touted as a high octane and firepower team in the Western Conference. So they're slow out of the chute for sure. But it hasn't been for total lack of trying for Juice Saros. He has the most games played amongst all goaltenders with 10 games played thus far, but he has a 2.83 goals against and a 902 save percentage. It hasn't been for lack of trying. He's just had a ton of volume to start this year. So they have a more than capable backup with Scott Wedgwood. I would honestly consider maybe giving Saros maybe a break here and there just to not get overexposed to start this year. I think the worst thing that Nashville could possibly do is completely overexposed their elite goaltender. But I think they'll pick it up. I do think Nashville eventually is going to pick it up. And, I say this because it's going to take time. Because last year, I remember distinctly, almost exactly to the day, we were hitting the panic button in Edmonton. And, we thought with the coaching change that it was the white flag, that Edmonton was going to go back to the drawing board. And they had an even worse record to boot than Nashville. They were the worst team in the NHL at one point. But not for nothing, Edmonton ended up making it to Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final. So I think we all need to kind of ease off the gas on worrying too much about an underperforming team and just kind of keep looking forward, put any kind of bad play in the rearview mirror and just kind of hope for the best. So let's move away from standings. Let's move away from talking about different teams to start the year. Let's talk about individual players and accolades right now. So I'm just pulling up right now our stat leaders, courtesy of NHL.com. So just bear with me while I share that. There we go. Actually, I'm just going to change this display a little bit just so that way it's a little bit better. Okay. Well, I'll move things as we go. But for those that are not familiar, NHL.com does have a more interactive board than most websites. It's a little gimmicky, but still, we kind of get exactly what we're looking for when we're looking through our stat leaders. So points to start off the year, and you can play around with this at your own leisure. NHL.com, just scroll up the stats and you can access the same page that I have. So amongst current skaters, you have a three-way tie for first place in points. That's Kirill Kaprizov of the Minnesota Wild. Then Cale Makar of the Colorado Avalanche with 21 points, a defenseman, mind you. And Sam Reinhart of the Florida Panthers, 21 points in those games thus far. Then in a three-way tie for 20 points, Nathan MacKinnon of the Colorado Avalanche, Nikita Kucherov of the Tampa Bay Lightning, and Mark Stone of the Vegas Golden Knights. Well, Mark Stone probably won't last for that much longer. He's probably going to be taking his inevitable stint on LTIR at some point, but he'll that back. But Kyle Connor with 19 points as well to start the year. Martin Necas of the Carolina Hurricane with 18 points. Tom's favorite player, Artemi Panarin of the New York Rangers with 18 points. And as I mentioned before, Dylan Strome with the Washington Capitals with 17 points to start this year. I do also want to just mention goal scoring leaders as well. We have a four-way tie with 10 goals. Sam Reinhart, Nikita Kucherov, Jersey Devils own one of my favorite players, Nico Hischier, and of the Montreal Canadiens, Cole Caulfield as well. And then we have some usual suspects, all tied with 9 goals and 8 goals as well. Kyle Connor with 9 goals, Artemi Panarin with 9 goals, Leon Draisaitl of the Edmonton Oilers with 9 goals, Willie Nylander with 9 goals from Toronto Maple Leafs, Nikolai Ehlers with 8 goals from Winnipeg, and Braden Point of the Tampa Bay Lightning with 8 goals as well. The assist leaders, just to scroll through them real quick. Some more usual suspects: Cale Makar, Mark Stone, Kirill Kaprizov, Nathan MacKinnon, Dylan Strome. Jack Eichel with 13 points to start this year for the Vegas Golden Knights as well. Josh Morrissey, as I mentioned before, 13 points for him for Winnipeg. Martin Necas, Jesper Bratt of the New Jersey Devils with 12 assists to start the year. And Mitch Marner of the Toronto Maple Leafs with 12 assists to start this year as well. Looking at the goaltending right now, and I always say with goaltending stats to take them with a grain of salt to kind of start the year, just because, it's not a true sample size of an NHL goaltender. This will be something that will be more important as we get into, November, December, January. So Philip Gustafsson, as I mentioned before, currently leads all NHL goaltenders in the goals against average department with the 2.12. Then we have Lucas Dostal of the Anaheim Ducks with 2.22 goals against average, as well as, again, Tom's very own Igor Shesterkin with a 2.22 goals against for the New York Rangers. Kevin Lankinen for the Vancouver Canucks at 2.25 goals against. Ilya Sorokin of the New York Islanders at 2.29 goals against for him. Connor Hellebuck, as I mentioned before, 2.33 goals against. Anthony Stolarz of the Toronto Maple Leafs at 2.38 goals against. Jake Ottinger at 2.44 goals against for the Dallas Stars. Pierre Kochetkov with a 2.51 goals against for the Carolina Hurricane. And Andrei Vasilevsky with a 2.54 goals against for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Looking at the save percentages to start the year as well, More usual suspects: Lucas Dostal with a 937, Igor Shesterkin with a 933, Philip Gustafson with a 924, Cam Talbot of the Detroit Red Wings, 923 goals against to start the year for him, Ilya Sorokin with a 922 goals against, Kevin Lankinen a 919 goals against, as well as Anthony Stolarz with a 919 goals against, Jake Ottinger and Connor Hellebuck a 917 goals against average to start for them, and Alex Lyon of the Detroit Red Wings at 916 goals against for him to start the year for the Detroit Red Wings. Shutouts, not as important, but if you really want to know, Anton Forsberg and Jake Allen, respectively, both have 2 shutouts to start the year. And then there's the rest of the list with just 1. But if you're curious, check out NHL.com for more stats and fun stuff like that. But to move away from this, Tom, who are your early trophy picks, and are there any surprises here for you to start the year in the points department here?
Well, early trophy picks. I mean, I got to pick Igor for the Vezina. He has been on fire so far. Obviously, we're only a month in, but I got to pick him. Now, for the Norris, I'm going with Cale Makar. But the real question I ponder is this: could he do something that hasn't been done since 1975? Could he do something that hasn't been done since Bobby Orr did it? Could he be the first defenseman to win an Art Ross trophy since 1975?
That could be a lot of fun. And not for nothing, if he wins the Art Ross, you might as well also give him the Hart Trophy as well.
Oh, yeah, definitely. But, I mean, at the same time, it depends what Colorado does. Now, Colorado, they're so thin. They're doing their jobs, him and McKinnon. Just nobody. They have no depth anywhere else. Everybody's out Druin. That's besides when we talk about them on another day. But, yeah, it would be cool to see. The only problem is it'd be like similar to when Carlson put up 100 points a couple years ago. Great that he did it, but his team was no good.
Yeah.
That'd be the only caveat. When Bobby Orr did it in 1975, the Bruins were still a pretty good team. And then when he had done it in the previous year, they had won the Stanley Cup. I think he won the scoring title in 1970, I think. And that was the year the Bruins won the Stanley Cup. So,
I mean, it could happen. I mean, I still see Colorado as a playoff team. I think this is just a bump in the road for them. Hopefully this is not another kind of like Carlson situation here for Makar, but yeah, great to start the year for him. In terms of like possible early trophy picks, it's tough to say right now, but we do have some familiar names in the point department that usually are there. Nikita Kucherov, Nathan McKinnon, Sam Reinhart, Cale Makar, as we've been mentioning. If all of these guys keep up their point production, I think they will certainly be in the trophy consideration, whether it's for the Hart, the Art Ross, the Rocket Richard, the Lady Bing. These are all definitely players that I think will be in consideration for those trophies. Surprising to me to start off this year, though, has been Nico Hischier, currently tied in goals to start this year with 10 goals, with the other 3 players that are currently tied in goals as well. I'll just ask it here for you, Tom. Do you think this is finally the year that he wins the Selke Trophy?
I mean, it depends. Still kind of early. A lot would need to go right. You know, the Devils would need to probably have a halfway decent year, which they are having so far. He'd need to keep his point totals up, which I believe he's capable of. So it very well could be the year. Yeah, just we got to see what else happens here with the Devils and how well they do the rest of the year. If he can stay healthy, that's another big one. So it's really those things that are paramount. And the Devils have been a team that over the past few years, injuries have really, really hurt them. So it's going to be interesting. But I think it's definitely possible that he could pull it off. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think it's entirely possible. But there was one big thing that you mentioned before that is going to be the real deal breaker for a possible Selke Trophy consideration for Nico Hischier. It's staying healthy. I mean, Nico has not played a full NHL season and I don't even remember. And actually now I'm kind of curious because I'm trying to think if he's actually registered a full 82 game season. I feel like he has. His rookie season he did, 2017, 2018, 82 games. The last time he had more than 80 games played was in 2022, 81 games played that year which he had 80 points for that year. Last year, 71 games. 3 years before that, 70 games. So he needs to stay healthy to be considered for the Selke Trophy, I think. And the Devils need to have a good year as well. But in terms of the goaltending department, I'm going to move away from like the Selke Trophy talks. Igor Shesterkin, Connor Hellebuck, and Philip Gustafsson. It should be no surprise that they're near the top in goaltending right now. I think right now that is if the season somehow ended today with only 12 games played, those are your 3 finalists right there: Igor, Connor, and Philip, for sure. But like I said before, for anybody that's really tracking goaltending stats right now, always be weary of these stats early on if you're trying to track possible trophy progression. We really don't get a true picture of goaltending until at least 25 games into the regular season. That's when we can really kind of get a true, like, okay, who's really going to be in consideration for these trophies? We need to hit like the quarter century mark in the NHL season to really kind of get that mark down for sure. But before we move on to our final part of this episode, I do want to talk about maybe some news items to keep an eye on as we roll into November. Well, we are already in November. Tom, I'm going to start here for you. What do you think are some news items to kind of keep an eye on going into November? And what's interesting to you right now?
Well, the big elephant in the room here, and it's one I'm sure we'll be talking about much, much more in the next coming weeks and months, is the rosters for the Four Nations face-off coming up in February. It's going to be interesting to see who makes, the respective 4 teams, who gets cut. It's going to be interesting to see how injuries affect it, because right now Connor McDavid is down for a bit, and Connor McDavid was projected to be a huge part of Team Canada. If he's not there, it's going to be up to guys like Sidney Crosby and Nathan McKinnon to carry that team to a championship. And Crosby, as we know, in every major tournament he's played in, has never lost. Whether it be World Juniors, whether it be Olympics, whether it be World Cup, Canada has won every tournament he's been the captain for. And even 2010 when he wasn't the captain. Regardless, but if McDavid's down or elects not to play, it's going to be also interesting to see maybe not who gets his spot, because they're going to probably just put somebody else in there, but who gets that final spot down there. Will it be like a Steven Stamkos? Could Alexis Lafreniere potentially go if he keeps his pace up? He's having a nice go of it, 10 points in 11 games. Could Alexis Lafreniere be donning the Canada jersey at the Four Nations? Something I've been thinking about, and I'll just spoil it for everybody. I will be at the USA versus Sweden game in Boston on President's Day on that Monday night, and also trying to go to Canada and Finland if the prices are reasonable that afternoon as well. So I'm really pumped up for that. Not touching Montreal with a 10-foot pole, but that's besides the point. Another thing that's really been on my mind is this developmental ruling that's been going on. It's been a little bit of a dispute. Not really a dispute, just a discussion going on between the NCAA and the Canadian Hockey League in terms of player eligibility. They're meeting about it again this month. They're going to meet about it later on in the year in May to finally put a ruling on it. But if this ruling goes through, it would actually make Canadian junior players eligible to go to the NCAA. And I guess some NCAA players could jump over to juniors too. Duncan Keith's the only one I can remember of record who actually did it, who started out playing college and then just said, you know what, after I think he played 2 years in college and then went to go play junior his 20-year-old year because Chicago asked him to. And what's funny about it is that if you have guys now who want to increase their draft status, who are maybe, putting up high numbers somewhere in Canadian juniors and just saying, well, my team's no good, or I'm not getting enough of a look, maybe I'll jump over and go play for Boston College for the next 2 or 3 years. Could that happen? Or could something else very well happen? Could an NHL team draft a standout player, coming in, U.S. college player, comes in, and say they go, for argument's sake, again, I'll just use Boston College. And they go to a school like Boston College, and they dominate their first year in Boston College. Set records, point per game, great player. So then the team comes up to that player and says, hey, listen, we'd love to have you, but we want you to go play in juniors for the team. Because every eligible player gets drafted in juniors to the CHL. They can just elect not to play. So what if they say, we want you to declare for the junior team that drafted you in the CHL, and we want you to go play a year for them to see if you can handle the more rigorous schedule and go handle the more physical hockey and see how you can do that. And at the same time, vice versa, talking to a friend of mine about it the other day, it could very well be guys who are third and fourth line players. You play there your 17 and 18-year-old year and say, you know what? The hell with this. I'm not riding buses through Saskatchewan in the middle of the night anymore. I'm going to go play for, I'll use it again, a Boston College or a Michigan or a Minnesota where the travel is much easier. I'm not playing as many games and I'm getting a top-notch education. Sorry about that, guys. I hit my laptop. And I'm getting a top-notch education instead of wasting away on a bus, not sure where I may go. So it's just that's really been in my head lately, and I'm curious to see what might happen, what the ruling might be, and if we get any headway on it this month. It's going to be very interesting to see where that goes and where player development, and player movement in the various feeder systems, especially on this continent, goes in the future.
That would be a huge change to player development for sure, especially because you would have younger players that would be able to play against some heavier talent earlier on, because that has been probably a semi-bigger knock on USA hockey over the last half to a full decade right now. It's like you've got guys that come in that aren't quite ready for the NHL game as well, and NCAA players that are basically forced to choose. Are you going to go to the NCAA or are you going to go WHL or OHL? You can't do both, so this would be groundbreaking for player development for sure. So it's definitely worth keeping an eye on. Beyond that, I'm also going to touch back on real quick to keep an eye on for sure the global face-off rosters as they could possibly roll out sometime soon. We've seen projections of what those rosters can look like, and I gotta say, looking at Team USA's roster, I think there's a lot to be excited about for the projected Team USA roster this year. And not for nothing, and I know I might catch some flack for it, but whatever. I think Team USA's roster is stronger than Team Canada's at the moment. I know you're shaking your head. I know, but
I'm going to say, here's what I'll say.
The goaltending is definitely stronger.
Goaltending, hell yeah. D, obviously Canada's got the best defenseman in the league right now. But in terms of USA is going to have McAvoy, Fox, and Hughes, provided they're all healthy. So, with the personnel the U.S. is going to have back on D, hell yeah, they're better. Up top, if McDavid's healthy, I'm hard-pressed to say that they have anybody on that team better than McDavid or McKinnon.
They might not have players that are better than McDavid or McKinnon, but this is actually a situation where I think quantity over quality actually might win out, just because I think the Team USA, at least if we're going based on the projected rosters, they have a deeper forward core than Team Canada right now, in my mind. They have a deeper forward core if you really kind of take a look. That being said, yes, without a doubt, Team Canada has two of the best, not only NHL players, but two of the best players in the world playing on that roster, Nathan McKinnon and Connor McDavid. Granted, if they're healthy, for sure. But I still think USA might have a little bit of the edge. Tom, while you look at those rosters and kind of compare and contrast, because I can definitely tell that's what you're doing right now. I'll mention also the other thing to kind of keep an eye on for me right now is injuries that have been really kind of hampering the league right now. I wouldn't say hampering the league, but definitely hampering certain teams right now. Colorado is definitely hampered down right now by injury. Ross Colton being on injury reserve with a broken foot. Jonathan Drouin, who has yet to play yet this year, and I know that Colorado is desperate to get him back. Connor McDavid, as we mentioned before, he's been out right now as well with an ankle injury. There's talks that he could return as early as this Saturday in a series against Vancouver. So maybe. They've also been playing without Evander Kane as well, which has been huge for them. But the team right now, in my mind, that is really the most out of sorts right now is the New York Islanders. Mike Riley took a vicious hit by Jordan Greenway the other night, and it was a scary situation. He was on the ice for a substantial amount of time, no movement. It seems like he's in good spirits and seems like he's going to be okay, but he's going to be out for a little while for sure. That's a big blow on D. Also missing Alexander Romanov and Adam Pelech right now, which is huge for them too. But Anthony Duclair also about a week ago, actually, Anthony Duclair was placed on injury reserve. He's not probably coming back until December. The biggest blow to this roster right now is Matthew Barzal, though, with his upper body injury. He was placed on LTIR a few days ago, and he's expected to miss 4 to 6 weeks, and that's huge for the New York Islanders. Matthew Barzal is the focal point of the Islanders line one and power play line one. And missing that, it's like missing your heart right now for sure. That's a huge blow for the New York Islanders, especially for a team that's currently fighting an uphill battle in the Metropolitan Division. So bad only gets worse for the New York Islanders for sure. The other team that's worth monitoring at the moment is the Vancouver Canucks. Thatcher Demko still on IR. Still don't really know the situation there. Hopefully he can come back sometime soon. Kind of help Vancouver kind of right the ship for sure, because they're supposed to be a much stronger team this year. And honestly, I miss watching those Thatcher Demko highlights. So it'd be really nice to see him back for sure. Tom, did you get to kind of compare and contrast the rosters?
Yeah, I did, and it's just I look at them now. I mean, obviously with Matt Barzal out, that opens up a spot, but I mean, and Connor McDavid is questionable. But I look on forward right now, and I still think that Team Canada is better than the U.S. on forward right now. I do. And the obvious thing is that you hope that the U.S. doesn't crap the bed like they did in Toronto in 2016, and the final is USA and Canada, because I do think, as a whole, if all these teams play to their best ability, that the U.S. and Canada are better than Sweden and Finland. Sweden and the U.S. could, definitely be a tight game. That game I'm going to, I think, could potentially be a semifinal to get to that championship game. Finland's going to have some good players, obviously, but I don't know if Finland's going to have enough of what it takes to beat any of these other teams. But the sheer fact is that, the projected roster was done by vote. Now, there's a big name missing here for Team USA, and that's Patrick Kane. I think Kane's going to be there. Another name missing here, because this was just done by votes. I'm looking at the NHL projection. I don't see Vincent Trocheck's name there. He might be there, too, just because he's a do-everything guy. He can play in every situation. He may make it. He may not. The thing is with the U.S. is that right now the top forward on the U.S. is Austin Matthews. Austin Matthews has the potential of disappearing in big moments. Canada, Crosby's had the big moments. McDavid, while not winning the Stanley Cup, got his team into a final. McKinnon has won a Stanley Cup. They're going to come there and be able to do it in big moments. My real question is if it comes down to a big moment here with Austin Matthews in this tournament, will he be able to answer the bell? Will he be able to answer the bell? And I brought Patrick Kane up to him. Patrick Kane's another one. It's not a knock on Patrick Kane. He has a tendency to disappear in these big best-on-best tournaments, too. Not in the playoffs. Obviously, the guy won 3 Stanley Cups with the Blackhawks and a Conn Smythe Trophy. But when it comes to these big international tournaments, there were so many times, whether it was the World Cup in 16 or the Olympics in 14, that we expected something big out of Patrick Kane, and it never showed up.
Can I play devil's advocate on the Austin Matthews point with him being the best player on Team USA's roster?
Mm-hmm.
There's only one other player that I would dare say is either at the same level or possibly a little bit better and proven to be a little bit better in big situations at this point. Matt Tkachuk.
That's true, too. And you have Jack Eichel there, who has a Stanley Cup as well. But Jack Eichel, I'm not sure, was the main focal point of that Vegas team either.
Yeah, just the talent level on Team USA towards the top there as well. I mean, you have Austin Matthews, Matt and Brady Tkachuk, Jack Hughes. These are guys I think offensively could provide some pretty important presence for Team USA. And the problem is you've got, especially for players that are lacking like big moment, or just big moments in general, wild cards on that team in the big moment could be Brady Tkachuk, can be Jack Hughes, because we really haven't seen them in, an Eastern Conference final or a Stanley Cup, so could be really, really fun and interesting to see.
But this is what I mean about Vincent Trocheck, and it's not a homer alert here. Vincent Trocheck turns it on in big moments. Vincent Trocheck, you go back to 2013, obviously 2013 World Juniors, Johnny Gaudreau was the best player on the team, but Vincent Trocheck was the glue guy. You heard his name all the time when he was on the ice. You could play him in any situation. We know he can play on a first power play. We know he can kill penalties. We know he can play on either side of the puck. That's why I'm saying He may deserve to be there. Maybe not, obviously not over Austin Matthews, but maybe I'd pick Vincent Trocheck over Clayton Keller. Maybe I'd pick Vincent Trocheck over Dylan Larkin. Maybe I'd pick Vincent Trocheck over Kyle Connor or Cole Caulfield. These are just projected rosters by Dan Rose on NHL.com now.
Yeah.
But I think I would take him over all three of those guys. And I'm telling you right now, Patrick Kane, I think, still deserves to be there.
Understandable. I mean, it's the same thing. It's the Sidney Crosby argument. If Sidney Crosby is going to be on Team Canada, I think for Team USA, you have to include Patrick Kane in a lot of ways. One thing I should mention here with the Global Series, I mean, this is all hearsay right now. The Global Series doesn't take place until February. This Global Series is replacing the All-Star Game this year for those that are not in the know. And personally, I'm actually really happy about it. And this is probably as close to a Olympic tune-up as these NHL players are going to get. And tune-up meaning like really kind of gelling together as a roster before getting into the Olympics in 2026. Now, obviously, it's not going to include every nation. We're not going to have like Team Switzerland, Team Germany, teams like that. However, it's still going to provide a good preview and kind of satiate us for those of us that have really kind of been missing out on a kind of world's kind of tournament, if you will. So I don't know. I'm excited for that coming up, and definitely once the rosters come out, Tom and I are definitely going to be analyzing the rosters and really kind of talking over omissions as well as some things that we're excited about when that comes around for sure. But November is definitely going to prove to be an interesting month in the NHL for sure. But let's round out this episode with our question of the day. I'm going to keep it simple here for today, Tom. Which team keeps their momentum and which team turns it around? And do you think that there are any that are the other way around? Do you think there are some teams that run out of gas or other teams that just all of a sudden take a turn for worse?
Well, I'm a Ranger fan. I like how they're playing so far. It's what I expected. I'm happy they didn't take a step back. Carolina, I know I said they might take a step back, but right now they're proving me wrong. And until they prove otherwise, I think they'll keep it up too. Now, your New Jersey Devils are going to be an interesting one. And it's not a knock on them, but the one thing the Devils have that nobody else has is they've played more games than anybody else. They've played 15 games as opposed to most other teams playing only 11 or 12. So when the games finally even out, it's going to be interesting to see where they finish. I still think they're a playoff team. I don't think they're going to fall off and wind up in last place. But it's just going to be interesting where it lays out. They're in first place right now by virtue of 1 point and also by virtue of having 4 more games played than the Rangers and 5 more games played than the Canes. So it's going to be interesting to see where they are. And like we mentioned before, with their injuries, that's going to be a whole nother thing. We have to see if they can stay healthy. I do expect Colorado and Nashville to get into the playoffs. I'm hoping Colorado gets, healthy. You get Nichushkin and Druin back, and maybe even Landeskog will come back. I don't know what they're doing with this guy. But the real question is, if they get in, then who out west is going to falter to let them get in? Nashville is too good to miss this year, and I'd be very surprised if they do. And if that is the case, my projected coaching change may very well happen. But if you look at the West right now, you have Calgary and Utah in those final 2 spots. Edmonton is out of the playoffs right now, too. And it's going to be real interesting to see what happens because, right now Winnipeg's on a heater, and so is Minnesota. It's going to be real interesting. You know how we were talking about last year with the races in the East being so close towards the end? Watch out for the West this year. Come around Easter time. Come around late March, St. Patrick's Day. Because I think we're going to be singing a similar song with the West this year. I think the West is going to be bonkers towards the end of the season if all of these teams keep it up and Colorado and Winnipeg wake up. Not Winnipeg, Colorado and Nashville wake up and start playing a little bit better.
Yeah. All really good points there, Tom. For me, I think Florida, New York, New Jersey, I think all those teams will definitely keep it up. Vegas, I think, is bound to kind of keep up their strong play. LA, I think, is going to be keep up their strong play as well. Winnipeg is going to keep up their strong play as well. However, they are bound to lose a few games coming up. I mean, no team can be this strong without losing a few games here or there. It's going to be nothing to panic about. Winnipeg, in my mind, is definitely a playoff team and definitely a team to watch in the Central Division. However, I think they are going to go on a slight skid. I don't think it's going to be detrimental, but I think they're bound for it at some point. Nashville and Colorado, they're bound to turn things around. The rosters are too good not to turn it around. Nashville is off to a snail's pace start, but Edmonton was off to that snail's pace as well. So, I think Nashville's going to turn around in the Central, and Tom makes a very good point. I'm just wondering which team up top in the Central Division is going to have to start losing some games to kind of swing things in Nashville and Colorado's favor. If I'm Chicago, I'm very much concerned maybe that they might start slowing down. They're currently in 6th place. So it's going to be interesting to watch. I think the West is definitely a fun conference this year to just watch in general this year. I'm just excited that hockey's back. I'm having fun watching this season. I hope you guys are having fun as well. And join the conversation down below. What do you guys think with how October went? What do you think with your favorite teams? What are you worried about? What are you excited about? Let us know down below. Comment down below. While you're there, hit the like button if you like what we're doing, and subscribe so that way you guys know when all of our content goes live. If you really want to know when our content goes live, you can also hit the bell notification. But just in case you forgot our YouTube channel, youtube.com/NHL on I-80 Sports. You can check out all of our content there or wherever you stream your podcast, whether it's Spotify or Apple Music. Go and check us out there as well. But I think it's time for us to kind of move away from this. It's time to watch more hockey. Happy November. We'll be coming back with regular episodes kind of moving forward. But until then, I'm Brian. He's Tom. This has been our October recap of the NHL on I-80 Sports.